Today what we're talking about is the need for personal growth for the entrepreneur. Oftentimes as a professional leadership and productivity coach, I get this a lot of times where they say, well, I've done a lot of businesses before. I have a lot of talent in these areas. I'm just good with people and good with teams. And, I just don't really, personal growth just really isn't putting money in the bank for me. I need to get out here and engage with teams and make things happen. And that's what's going to put money in the bank. So one of the things that we want to help them very quickly realize is that everybody needs personal growth, period, and especially entrepreneurs. And here's why. That talent that they're referring to is not going to sustain them. It's not going to carry them all the way to the summit of whatever it is that they're striving to accomplish in their entrepreneurial efforts. So the way I'm going to kind of go through this today is I'm going to address it as kind of a questions that I commonly get. And really I'm going to talk about 3 questions that I really get a lot as I work with clients in this area. And obviously the first one is, why do I need personal growth? I said talent will only take you so far. It's literally like this. So many people start off in businesses and they rely purely on their talents and gifts, and they sit back and they enjoy the fruits of those talents and gifts. However, the problem with that is that one day they're going to find themselves at the refrigerator, opening the proverbial fruit drawer and finding that it's empty. So how do we keep that fruit drawer empty? Well, the answer, very plain and simple, is personal growth. Personal growth ensures that when you go to the refrigerator, there's always fruit. So talent is never enough. And if you start off any entrepreneurial effort thinking that talent is enough, you're going to find yourself very quickly stagnating on your climb to the top, so to speak. And when you stagnate, here's the detriment in that. When you stagnate, you lose this key thing called momentum that is absolutely critical for an entrepreneur. You don't want to lose momentum. Forward momentum is key. It keeps us moving. It keeps, it creates synergy for our teams. It creates synergy for those people that we are looking to bring onto our teams. They get interested. They see us continuing to go. And so we want to sustain forward momentum, and personal growth ensures that happens. There are essentially, as I kind of alluded to a little bit before, there are essentially 2 types of entrepreneurial models that folks follow, as they chase success. The first is one that we refer to as the temporary success model. And it's basically obtained, just like we just said, it's obtained through leveraging your existing talents and gifts. And this model will, not if, not might, it will leave you vulnerable at some point on your climb, period. If your dream is worthwhile, it's going to cause you to have to take the tough uphill climb. And at some point, you're going to find that there's this thing called a growth gap. And that growth gap exists when you get to a point in your climb where you are ill-equipped to continue. And that growth gap, it steals momentum and it creates this backslide idea. And anytime you start backsliding, it's hard to get that grip again. And I think all of us in the entrepreneurial lane can relate to that statement really well. The second model I want to talk about, and the one that I really, really try to help clients understand and get to, and teams that I work with, is this sustained success model. And the sustained success model is really obtained in one key way: intentional personal growth, period. This model says that in order to maintain continuous upward mobility, I need to have personal growth to close those growth gaps. And the key here is that you don't want to wait and close those growth gaps as you get to them. How many people have you seen, either with yourself, with your teams, other teams, where they wait till they face a challenge before they say, oh, by the way, I probably should have been prepared for this and I'm not. So we have to come to a screeching halt, reassess the challenge, and come up with a plan to tackle that challenge. And all of those things steal your momentum. So we don't want to wait for the challenge to be there. We want to have, we want to kind of vision cast, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute, but kind of vision cast as to, this is my vision map, and these are the things I'm going to experience in there. And, when I experience them, what do I need to be equipped with? It's like, it's literally like starting a climb up a mountain, knowing that a mile up ahead, there's going to be a ravine, and you're going to have to cross that ravine, but you're going to need rope to do it. But you know what? Don't worry about that. Because when you get to that ravine and you didn't plan for it, you're going to have to go all the way back for the rope that you need. And that is how you kill a business and a team, and you kill momentum very quickly. So, the next question I want to address is how do you know, or how do I know where I need to grow if I'm not physically facing the challenge? And that gets back to what I just said. I like to use a little quote, when I'm trying to explain this point to people is that, you don't know what you don't know, and you can't grow until you know. Now, once you know, you can grow, and that allows you to go. So what does all that mean? All that big, long, lot of goes and grows in there. What does all that mean? Essentially this. Oftentimes, until we sit down and take intentional effort to lay out the path to our summit, we're not going to consider the things we don't know. We're not going to consider where that ravine is until we, find ourselves there because we're on the journey. When we sit down intentionally and do this, we start to identify those areas where we lack in knowledge, skills, and abilities. And that allows us to create a growth plan to close those growth gaps so that we don't have to turn back for rope when we find ourselves at that ravine. We are equipped. We brought the rope with us, or we planned an alternate route. So, most people, like I said, they would rather wait till they're facing the giant to realize that they're unequipped and ill-equipped to slay the giant. Don't be like that. If you want to be successful as an entrepreneur, don't be like that. Come equipped to slay the giant from the beginning. So how do you do that? Well, creating your vision map is a lot like, it's a mind model, essentially is what it is. It's thinking about your path to your summit and laying all these things out and then crosswalking it to where do I see gaps in my knowledge, skills and abilities? What obstacles are in my path or might be in my path? What distractions might I encounter? And what am I going to need to close those gaps? And here's a key one I want to bring everybody's attention to. What resources am I going to need to this? If you're doing this thing on your own, your dream is not big enough, period. If you are making the climb to your summit by yourself with nobody alongside you, your dream is not big enough, period. Dream bigger. The journey to the top can be lonely unless you intentionally bring people along with you. So what resources, what people, what can people bring to this that are going to help this journey up the path? Who has walked this path to success before me? Who's already trailblazed? Why do I need to try to figure it all out on my own if I can reach out to Christy and say, Christy, you've walked this path already. When you walked it, I've led teams of 3, I've led teams of 5, and I've led teams of 10. But when I get beyond 10, I got no idea what I'm facing. But Christy, you're leading teams bigger than 10. What are some of the things that you ran into? What are some experiences that you had? How did you overcome them? I can learn from Christy's experiences and plug those things into my personal growth plan so that I am prepared to cross that gap when the time comes. And it's going to come. You know it. So that's the piece on, why do you not want to wait for the challenge? If you wait for the challenge, you've waited too long and you're going to have to backtrack and you're going to lose momentum and you're going to pay a price for it. So, the last thing I want to talk about is, a lot of folks say, well, okay, I understand why, and now I understand how, but how do I know if my growth plan is really focused enough? And so what I tell people, and I'm going to give you the same tidbit of great information here. What I tell people is use the acronym GROWTH. You're not going to find this in a book anywhere. This is something I made up a long time ago when I was trying to ask the same questions that you're asking today. The first one is, the G. So the G in growth stands for goal-oriented. Everything that you put into your growth plan should be tied to a goal. A goal is not your summit. I want to make that really clear. The goal is not what you're trying to reach at the summit. That's your purpose. A goal is a stepping block along the climb to your summit. So your personal growth plan should be tied to those goals that say, okay, well, my goal is that I want to be able to successfully lead a team of 15. Okay, well, how do I do that? What personal growth needs to occur to meet that goal, which is part of my climb to my summit? And lay out your personal growth plan for that goal. So it has to be goal-oriented. So many people lay out growth plans and they don't stick with them because it lacks purpose. It's like this. I said this before. It's like going, it's like, a basketball player who, goes to the basketball court every day and they shoot the basketball at the rim because the goal is to put that ball through the rim. There's a sense of satisfaction when I achieve that goal. Well, what if one day that basketball player came to the basketball court and I took the rim down? I removed the goal. I've removed, essentially the goal which led to the purpose. I've removed it. I've destroyed the motivation for the basketball player to even be there. So what does he do? He might dribble around a little bit. He might shoot at the backboard a couple times for giggles, but he's going to lose interest and he's going to walk away. And that is what happens to so many people with their growth plans. That is why they do not stick with them, because they're not goal oriented. It has no application. It's not tied to their purpose. So the R in growth stands for reflective. Your growth plan should be such that it causes you to reflect at the end of each day, at the end of each milestone in your growth plan. You know, how am I reviewing what I'm learning? So as you create your growth plan, tie it back to a reflective result. I'm reflecting on this daily. How is it going with this book? I said I was going to read 15 pages in this book every day. How am I doing that? You know, how's it going with that? What am I struggling with? What am I learning about myself in the process of this growth? How can I apply it to myself? And oh, here's a better one. How do I multiply that to my team? How do I add that value that I'm getting from it to my team? Remember, the journey does not have, if your journey is only taking, or it only involves you, it's not really, you know, it's not going to be a worthwhile journey, period. So the O stands for organized. We are creatures of process. We are creatures of organization. We like order, period. If you don't believe it, you know, I'm going to tell you right now as an entrepreneur, if you lack order, you might get a little bit along your path with your talent alone, but at some point that organization or lack thereof is going to catch up to you. So you want your growth plan to be organized. It should be laid out methodically as, you know, as you're crossing the, you know, basically as you see the stepping stones along your climb to your summit, your growth plan should correspond to that. It should be very organized. It should be laid out in a way that says, you know, when am I going to do my growth plan? You know, when am I doing this specific aspect of my growth plan? Where am I doing it? I'm going to tell you right now, if you don't stop and say, okay, I'm not just going to read. I'm going to go to a quiet place where I can really digest what I'm reading, or really digest what I'm listening to, and actually take some really good notes on that. Because again, the best way to learn as part of your growth plan is to take what you're reading, ask why it resonated with you, and put it back into your own words, into your journal, into your blog, into whatever. But find a way to put that back into it. That's the key, is to have an organization concept, though, because if it's disorganized, you won't stick with it. Okay, the W stands for weatherproof. I like this one. You're gonna face storms on your climb. Newsflash, if you didn't know that, sorry, I'm not trying to burst your bubble, but it's coming. The storm's coming. Maybe not now, maybe not tomorrow, but the storm's coming. And you want your growth plan to be weatherproof. When the storm sets in, and what do I mean by storms? Obstacles, disruptions, distractions. Something will try to sway you from your growth plan. And if you're not weatherproof, meaning you haven't thought through, prepared for, and have a plan to address the inclement weather, you're going to get caught out in the storm without an umbrella. So be prepared. Have a plan that's weatherproof. The T stands for time bound. When will I complete my plan, or this specific step in my plan? Again, a lot of people say, well, I want to read this book. Okay, that's when do you want to finish reading this book? How many pages a day do you want to read this book? Have a very time-bound plan for whatever step in your growth plan is involved. Okay, that's key, because if you're not tying it back to some type of time commitment or time requirement to get it done, you're going to just continue to, you know, it's literally like in school when you were taking an exam, or you were preparing for an exam, and I said, listen, you get a syllabus, and they say, listen, at the midway part of this course, you know, you're going to take a midterm, and you know it's there. It's not a secret. You even know the topics that are going to be covered on the exam. But what do? What do most people do? They wait until about 2 nights before the exam, and they cram it all in there. And then they go in and they sweat, wondering if they're going to be able to make it count, if that short-term memory is going to hold up. Don't be like that as an entrepreneur. Don't wait for that, don't cram it in there and think you're going to make it work. Have it time-bound. Lay it out, plan it out, make it time-bound, and stick with that time commitment. The last one, and probably the most important, the H stands for heartening. It should create passion. Your growth plan should create a passion that makes you want to pursue it, period. So as you have a growth plan, as you look at your growth plan that you've laid out, and I'm going to tell you, if you've laid and crosswalked your growth plan to your vision map that's tied to your purpose, it's going to excite you. You're going to have purpose. It's going to create passion in you, period. So I appreciate the opportunity to share with you today why personal growth, and why specifically personal growth for the entrepreneur.